Good afternoon, guys. I need to get some soil mix made because I am about 10 days late to start my onion seeds. Starting my onions from seed have given me the best results over the past few seasons, much better than the sets that I buy at the store. And to tell you the truth, I couldn't even find the sets this year. So because I'm late, I really need to get this soil mix made so that I can get these things planted inside. So I'm gonna get this done and then we'll go inside. This is the soil mix that I use for all of my soil blocks and for starting all of my plants. It's really great for soil blocks. It compresses down really, really nicely. And I do have another video showing this if you guys are interested. I'll try to link that in the description below. But yeah, if you guys are thinking about doing soil blocks this year, that is my main way that I start things. I'm trying to do this quick because I have to go pick the kids up from soccer practice. And I'm gonna run out of time, I'm afraid. So that's about 8 gallons of sifted compost. You can see a bunch of the big pieces that came out of that. Black cow compost used to be beautiful. You didn't even have to sift it. Last year was worse. There were rocks, big chunks of rocks, really bad. This year it's looking a little bit better. If you guys are gonna use black cow, I suggest you get it now. We're in January, before the garden run happens, because I think the quality is just gonna go down as the demand goes up. The next thing I'm gonna sift is some peat moss. And this is a 3 cubic foot block of peat moss. This used to cost $9, now it's $24. So if y'all are fresh into gardening this year, things are a lot more expensive than they used to be. And I thought like 9 or 10 bucks for that was very expensive anyways. And you used to not have to sift this either, but they've been filling it with not such great product lately either. So we'll see how this one is. Let's see how strong I am tonight. Okay, well I got it up, that's something. Oh, that's heavy. These are the times that having that 14-year-old boy come in handy, but he's at soccer tonight and Nate's working, so I'm having to manhandle this myself. The kids are gonna be like, Mom, what were you doing, when I gotta pick him up? This is my perlite, and although I look really, really strong right now, this is not that heavy, so. After mixing the sifted compost and the sifted peat moss, I add a few amendments into my soil mix to nourish my plants. The first thing I'm using is green sand, and that's a soil conditioner, but it also contains potassium, iron, magnesium, and a lot of other trace minerals. The next thing is blood meal, and that is for nitrogen, for good growth for my seedlings. I'm also adding some pulverized lime, and that is just to neutralize the pH since I used so much acidic peat moss in my soil mix. And the last thing that I'm going to add for an amendment is a ½ cup of bone meal for phosphorus for good root development. I'm gonna go ahead and mix all of that up and get it mixed fairly well, and then I'm gonna end up adding in about 5 gallons of perlite. And that perlite is going to help with aeration, with drainage, and it also helps with really good root development. And you can see here that I'm dividing my soil into 3 different areas, and that is just because I have so much of it that I do that to make it easier to mix before I add it all into my tote. So it has been a few days since I made my soil mix. I think it's actually been more like a week. Typically, I start everything in soil blocks, which is basically the soil mix that I made, and I put it in a soil blocker and I compact it down, and it makes these nice little blocks. When the roots hit the air, they prune themselves so your plants don't become root bound, and I can add everything that I need into my own soil mix so that I'm sure that my plants are being nice and nourished and well fed by that. And I really do love soil blocks, but they're a little time consuming. And it takes a bit of labor to get all of those soil blocks made. So I'm going a little bit of a different route this year with only some of my things. So these trays here, these are air pruning trays, and they're from Bootstrap Farmer. And you'll see on the back, there's a nice big hole in the bottom of the pot so that you can pop your finger through to push that plant out. And you'll also see that there are some slits, if you can see in here. And basically all of that airflow allows your roots to air prune so that your things do not get root bound. Now, the reason that I'm going to start my lettuces and herbs in these trays is because they don't need to sit inside as long as some of my other things. Things like lettuces, spinach, greens, they don't. They can handle the frost, they can handle the cold. So really what I need to do is just get those things established and then just get them out either in my green stalks or down in the big garden. So in this tray, I am going to be putting in some lettuce, and this is Little Gem lettuce. This is from Johnny Seeds, and I actually love this. It's pelletized, which basically just means that it's in this nice coating. So lettuce seeds are really, really tiny. I'm gonna bring this up so you can see. So lettuce seeds are really tiny, and sometimes once you place them onto the soil, it is actually pretty difficult to know where you've put them and where you have not. So the pelletized seeds are nice. They help with germination. They help to keep that seed uniformly moist and not drying out. And you can just see it a lot better. So basically what I'm doing is I'm just putting 2 seeds on each little compartment here, and then I'm just gonna press those down into the soil, and then I'll cover with a little bit of the soil here that I have in my jar. The only other item that I'm starting right now this early in January are my onions. And so I'm starting my onions in deep pots. These are 2.5 by 2.5, and they're probably about 3.5 inches deep. I like a nice deep pot. I found that if I start my onions too shallow, that over time they actually end up dying on me and they don't do as well. So we're gonna start them in deep pots, and I'm going to sow them very heavily. So I'll probably have about 20 to 25 seeds per pot. And once those come up, I'll let them grow to about 2.5 to 3 inches. I'll keep them that height just by taking some scissors and kind of snipping off the tops until I am ready to plant them out. Now, most things you can't plant that densely because when you go to separate them, you'll damage the root systems. But with onions, they actually separate very easily. The roots tend to be pretty tough. And so when you pop those out of the pot, you'll just, you know, have a block of soil there with a bunch of onions, and you just kind of take an outside one and kind of peel down, out and down, and they separate really nicely. And then you just plant those outside in early spring. So that is what I'm going to be doing next. A few of the varieties that I'm going to be using are, so this one is a Cabernet, and this is an intermediate day onion. This one is a yellow Granix onion. This is a short day onion. This is a Walla Walla onion. This is a sweet onion, and it's a long day onion, and most likely I'm not gonna get great bulbs out of this because of the fact that it's a long day onion, but I really just wanted to try it just to see. I also have an early white Granix onion. I have a red Creole onion, and I have a red Burgundy onion. So I'm going to sow all of these. One thing that's kind of lousy about short day onions is that they're not great storage onions. The long day onions are good storage onions, but those, you really need to be north of Washington, D.C. or north of Virginia, around that area. So if you kind of draw a line from Virginia all the way west through the United States, if you're north of that, you most likely need long day onions, and if you're south of that, you need the short day onions. And most likely either place could probably grow intermediate onions. That's why I'm going to try that one intermediate onion just to see how that does. It's always good to experiment, to see what works for you, because if you don't try it, you don't know it, and what works for someone else might not work for you. And if it doesn't work for someone else, that doesn't mean that it's not going to work for you. So it's always good to know, and it's always good to keep a journal so that you can remember exactly what you did and what worked and what didn't, so that you can either do the same thing next year or do something different. And then I'm just gonna put a little bit of soil on top of those. I did pre-moisten these cups. Went ahead and ran a bit of water over them a few times just to moisten the soil on the bottom there. So we're gonna cover these. And these are more pots and trays from Bootstrap Farmer. In the past, I've just used really inexpensive 10, 20 trays, which is what this bottom green tray is. And they have just fallen apart because the weight of how I typically start my plants and the soil blocks is just, it's just so heavy, and those things are just so cheap that, yeah, they really just don't last. And I stretched them out through a couple of seasons and, you know, tried to duct tape them and stuff. And finally, we just decided to invest in some stuff that is meant to last. In fact, I think these have a 2-year warranty. But man, these things are pretty heavy duty, and I really, really like them. Plus, I like the colors. So I'm gonna take those and very, very, very lightly just mist a bit of water on this so that I don't displace any of the seeds in there. And then, yeah, we're gonna let those germinate. Anyways, guys, hope you found this helpful. Let me know what you guys are starting at home. I would love to know, because I think we're all kind of getting that itch of wanting to get back into the gardening season. So thank you guys. I hope you have a great night.